talking to Connor and Matt from Casket Feeder. New album. It comes out 20th of May. Okay. Really, as a starting point for anyone who's not really familiar with obviously the two singles that you've put out from this album so far, what are people going to be getting from this new album, Servants of Violence?
I would say, in summary, the harmonies and melodic like nastiness of Swedish death metal filtered through the punishing brutality of the New York and Florida sound with a horrible underbelly of UK hardcore. That's like the three touchstones of our sound, I would say.
That's something I did want to ask you about, because when a lot of bands will, let's say a lot of bands in there are going to mesh in a metal and hardcore sound, they always go for something like Slayer meets Cro-Mags. Now you guys, or At the Gates meets Cro-Mags, as another example, you guys do have a very distinctive UK hardcore sound. So we're not, I reviewed the album and I said it was literally like Entombed having a backyard fight with Stamping Ground, right?
Oh, we love that as well. When we read that quote, we're like, amazing.
You really do hear that gritty edge of a lot of kind of like late 90s, early 2000s, like Blackfish era Rex style UK hardcore bands.
Yeah.
What made you use that as kind of like the basis of that sound, as opposed to looking at something which might be more recognizable to a lot of people?
I think it's generally down to just our personal taste in obviously we love all kinds of hardcore, mostly I love New York hardcore as well, but I think we're all massive fans of UK stuff like Stamping Ground, like you said, the Blackfish era, even bands like Decimate, like for me personally, Decimate, Stamping Ground, like Knuckle Dust, all the Ruction sort of bands, we all love that type of stuff. So I think that's just kind of naturally kind of made its way into our music.
Yeah, it's just an organic, it's just filtered through organically, as Matt said. It's stuff that we are literally just influenced by and like we enjoy. So it has it's just come through that way. Like it wasn't like a conscious thing. It's kind of in our DNA when we're writing,
Was that always when obviously Casket Feeder started, was that always something that you looked to try and combine, or was it just a natural kind of progression through jamming and thinking and finding things that went together, which had something come from two different, slightly different musical influences brought together? Was it something that you planned to do right from the get-go? Or was it just how things seemed to progress naturally?
I wouldn't say it was planned necessarily. I think when we first started, I think the other guys, obviously Connor, when you first started, I think you just wanted to write ignorant riffs. Basically, that was the sole purpose, really. But there's never been any sort of formula that we stick to, and this has to be the hardcore bit or the death metal bit. It's just, I think it's just naturally kind of just.
Yeah,
that way.
I think that hardcore element has always been like an intrinsic part of it, like from the start. But as we've gone on and evolved and our writing's gotten better, it's elevated more in there. Like I'd say, like the way we execute that, like the way we execute those parts and like actually entwine it naturally into the music, and even like the more death metal side of it as well, that's been pushed to a higher level with the material now compared to the EPs. Like everything's just been like kicked up to 10 a bit more. So yeah, I think by proxy, where everything has elevated a bit and like consciously we wanted to push ourselves to write stronger material and challenge ourselves, like those elements are even more just highlighted now, because we've gotten better at our craft as the time's gone on, I'd say.
With regard to obviously your earlier EPs and this new record, how have you tried to really, because obviously both EPs are both independently released, and this is also going to be independently released. What have you learned from doing everything by yourselves independently to ensure that any past mistakes or just maybe just minor errors how have you learned from them in releasing your own music by yourselves, as opposed to having other people on board to work alongside?
I think in terms of releasing it by yourself, you definitely have more control over it, and that's definitely a lot more powerful for us. I think to just have more of a say on what we do. our overall sort of presence online. Yeah,
I think in terms of functioning as a band as well, and in terms of this bleeds into everything. So it's the writing, it's performing, it's just like just threaded throughout every decision and whatever. It's like the main thing you learn, I think, and the main takeaway you have when you do things independently is like, no matter what else, you have to have complete faith in what you're doing, and it has to be true to yourself and your vision, and we all have to be happy with what we're putting out and be like, yeah, I can stand by that. I'm proud of what we've done, because if you don't, you know what I mean, like, with all the best will in the world, you can say, oh, this, you know, this hasn't happened because we're not on a label, or that, you know, we haven't had opportunities when we're not on a label. Like, it's really easy to sit back and say that, but that's also like, that's a bit of a crutch, and it's almost an excuse sometimes. Like, you have to put the graft in regardless. And like, if you can, you know, if we can honestly say, look, you can rely on the strength of the material, rely on the strength of the live performance, and we can 100% say, yeah, that's true to what we wanted to do. Like, we've kept our integrity and stuff. Like, that's the main thing. Like, and really that has what has helped us progress, like, to where we are and got us the opportunities we have. It's like we're so steadfast in like what we believe the band to be, and like what our aim is for the band in terms of like the music, and like what we want to put out there for people, and like just growing more into our own sound, and making Casket Feeder like a thing where it's like, oh yeah, I want people to hear our music and go, that's Casket Feeder, you know. That's something we all want. And yeah, I mean, when you are doing it on your own, obviously it's a hard slog. I mean, it's a hard industry for any band, even if you're on a label and stuff, don't get me wrong, but you know, you have to fight that bit harder, and like knock on doors that bit harder when you haven't got a label backing and stuff. And it gives you that thing of like, now we've got something to prove here, you know. And I think that's something that's always fueled us. It's never been something that's made us like back down or go, oh no, we can't do this because, you know, we're doing it on our own. It's made us want to go, no, we're going to show we can do it. I think it's a healthy catalyst, you know. It should be that thing. It's like, no, we're going to prove like we're worth caring about, you know.
Do you think you get a better sense of reward from actually doing that independently? Because obviously I mean, I remember seeing you guys the first time at Death to Cancer. I think it was number 3 when you opened, and then it was kind of like 3 months later, you know, everyone within that scene knew the name Casket Feeder. And there was a tour that you did with I don't remember who it was off the top of my head. Teeth Grind. Oh no,
Grinder. Yeah.
That was kind of, I don't know. That was what seemed like a relatively short period of time after that. So I mean, there must have been quite a sense of really just like, you know, achievement that you'd done that without having someone really in your corner, because you'd controlled your own destiny in doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've always kind of done sort of DIY type stuff in other bands that I've done. So I guess it's always, yeah, definitely 100% a sense of reward when you've kind of made all the, you've done everything yourself, and you've kind of, you know, got the hard work to kind of show for it. So yeah, and 100%, yeah, it definitely makes you feel better knowing that, oh yeah, I've put the hard work in to achieve this.
Yeah, and I think it's I think it kind of from an outside perspective as well, like I think people just respect that. Like, it's the same for us, you know, when you see a band just like done it DIY, and it's just like, yeah, you've just got to respect it, you know. Like, it's just I think if you can show you can do it on your own 2 feet kind of thing, it goes a long way. And yeah, it's just like, and it does feel, it's awesome, like when you've you make those relationships, especially like when you go on tour with a band. It's like, you know, you reach out, you make that initial kind of communication, and you're like, it's like we made like genuine like friends in Teeth Grinder and stuff like that, you know. It's like, whereas it might have been a bit different if it was just something that was set up like, oh, okay, cool, you're going to go and tour with this band and whatever. It's like, you know, even to the point, it's like we got up from the airport, we're like all touring in the van together, watching like Alan Partridge and stuff. It just things like that, you know. And it's wicked. You just make a real great network like doing it that way.
Obviously this album being released on CD that you've pressed it on. Was there any thought with, obviously, I mean, CD was a few years ago considered a dead format. Obviously, vinyl's the cool format, but it takes so long to get pressed due to various issues. And then you've also had the rise in tape kind of coming back, especially within the punk and hardcore thing. It never really went away, but it's definitely becoming quite prolific now. With other styles. Was there any thoughts on looking at different ways to release it, or was it firmly releasing it on CD was the way that you wanted to go with it?
I think we've definitely explored that sort of option. I mean, I think we'd all love to have a copy of this on vinyl for sure. But yeah, like you said, it takes so long to get it pressed at the moment. Even before COVID, it took a couple of months easy. But I think now there's obviously a lot of delays. I mean, if we had the opportunity to do it, then obviously we would love to do it. But it's also the cost as well. So obviously we're self-financing it ourselves. So it's just definitely a lot of money to front as a band. But yeah, I mean, there was never a sort of discussion, it only has to be on tape, it only has to be on CD. But yeah, we'd love to try as many formats as possible, really.
Yeah, we've all said as a band, like we'd love to do like a vinyl release, like it's something we'd love to do. But that's kind of the flip side actually of that, about doing things independently and stuff as opposed to being on a label. Yeah, like the budget is like no doubt a prohibitive thing of like doing a vinyl press. Like it for us at the moment, that would be a bit of a challenge, and it's especially when you don't have the guarantee that you're going to recoup those costs back and like sell the whole run. It's like it can be a bit of a risk
it's a lot of money to kind of be in the red straight away when there's other things that you're going to need to fund to help the band move forward.
That's it. Like in terms of tape, it's like it's never any something. I know obviously some bands have done really well with it. It's cool, it's quite a cool thing, like people like to collect them and stuff, but no one's ever asked us about, are you going to do this on cassette and stuff? So that's not been one that's kind of crossed our minds. But I know it's something that's had obviously you mentioned punk hardcore, it's never kind of really went away, but it's had a kind of a resurgence in like metal and especially death metal and stuff, as well as a lot of like underground death metal bands that have done like cassette releases and stuff. Quite a cool little niche thing, like collectible thing. But yeah, for us really, like if we were going to do another format, the big one would be like doing a vinyl release, like 100%.
Obviously, you mentioned earlier with an interview that you've really stepped up the game in with regard to obviously the songwriting for this new record. Is there anything that you can really put your finger on that you think people are going to hear from this compared to the Scalps EP, for example, that really sets itself, or is it just basically the fact that you've been able to work better as a group to get these songs written?
Yeah, I think we've definitely worked better as a group. It's definitely been a lot more of a collective effort in terms of the songwriting. I think comparing it to like the EPs, there's definitely a lot more technicality, a lot more. I think the structures are just a bit more sort of well thought out compared to the other stuff, and I think just generally, bringing all of our individual influences together has kind of really helped create the sound that we've managed to pull off on this album.
Yeah, and like in terms of the musicianship, like the EPs, like don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're like Dream Theater or anything like that were musically technical, but the EPs were really like underplaying. It was just like we wanted to write the material quite quickly so we could get out playing shows, and just like when you hear the EPs, they're quite rough and ready. Like the songs are pretty straightforward. They're just like high energy. It's just like, let's just write. And like Matt was saying, the MO initially when I first started demoing and stuff, it's like I just want to write some like ignorant tunes kind of thing. But when it comes to the album, it's like, okay, we're definitely like, we know we're like a group of like capable musicians. Like let's show that a bit more, and let's actually push ourselves a bit more, and like with the material and like with the songcraft and stuff. And that was just to show you a bit more of a truer demonstration of like what we're capable of, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. With regard to the lyrics on the album, was that just handled by yourself, Matt, or did everyone else have input in some of that writing as well? Because obviously you'll get certain bands where obviously multiple members of the bands will write lyrics even if they're not all involved in the performance, or then you'll obviously get bands which just handled by by the front man. How did it work with regard to this album?
Yeah, I think yeah, the majority of by myself. I think Connor had a lot of help on it as well. I think Servants of Violence, the actual title track, they were written solely by Connor. There's a few songs that me and Connor kind of both sort of helped with and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's no real sort of way. I mean, it's not like I have to write all the lyrics. There's I think Connor's quite good at writing lyrics as well, so it's always good to have him there to sort of bounce ideas off. But yeah, that's kind of how that worked.
Yeah, Matt definitely does like the majority of the heavy lifting. Like the majority of the lyrics are from Matt. And yeah, that's something I've kind of always. But don't get me wrong, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I do think I always think it's a bit more special when the vocalist is writing the lyrics, because it's they're delivering like their thoughts and like they're putting their message out kind of thing. Like, don't get me wrong, there's bands I absolutely love where like the vocalists don't really write many of the lyrics. Like a good example of that would be Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, George writes nothing. It's all done by Alex and Paul.
Obviously it works for them, it's awesome, but I just think I'd feel a bit weird doing that, going right, here's the lyrics kind of thing. We're lucky with Matt. Like Matt's a really good writer, and like Matt's quite prolific, so it's never a struggle like, oh, we need lyrics, where are the lyrics kind of thing, and then equally like he puts a lot of thought into it. It's never just like, oh yeah, just slap this out kind of thing. So yeah, it's a good dynamic. Like it's cool, like we can kind of work off of each other and stuff, or definitely,
we found obviously over the last couple of years that there was a lot of bands, both more independent bands and larger bands and really large labels, that halted albums being put out due to the pandemic and the lack of touring. Did you guys find when you were putting this album together that did you put any kind of maybe delays on it yourselves so you could actually spend a bit extra time additionally crafting the material, or were you or was it just a case of it was ready to go when it was ready?
We had we'd actually recorded this album in April 2019. So the original plan was to drop it late 2019, and then to kind of cut a long story short, we signed a deal with a label. It didn't work out. Like basically we were going to release early 2020 after the deal got signed, and then obviously COVID happened, put an absolute spanner in everything, and then we were trying to navigate our way around that. So initially we're like, can we just delay for a couple of months so we can kind of see what the landscape's going to be like, because no one knows. And not to throw too much shade or anything, but the communication kind of like completely dried up. We're just like, we literally don't know where we stand with this, which isn't a great place to be in when we're just trying to get some kind of clarity. So we just decided to leave the deal. Like we did it all amicably. We're like, look, this isn't kind of going to work out. We kind of want control over how we're going to do this, because we've just kind of been left a little bit hanging here.
I think we were quite lucky in the sense that not really much had been done yet in terms of deals. So we, I think the time we left, I think we were in a place where, not much time had been spent either way. So yeah, we were able to leave sort of amicable terms, and there's no bad blood there at all. But it just, I think, worked better for us, and definitely gave us more time to reflect on the whole process. And I think we're really glad that we held off. As frustrating as it was, it's definitely, I think, going to be a lot more better in the long run.
What are there? You've obviously mentioned next week you've got the release show. Is there anything further that's been planned with regard to promoting the release via touring, or any other kind of? Because there has there been a video dropped already for the track off this album?
Tomorrow. So we've had two videos so far, and then we've got our next single, Edge of Collapse, that comes out tomorrow on the day of the release as well. So we've got a music video for that coming as well.
And obviously, with regard to kind of like live shows or touring from the after the release show, is there anything that's currently in place, or is that still a work in progress for you?
Work in progress, I think. Yeah, there's definitely things that we're trying to get booked up. I think after the launch show, we've actually only got one other show with Gate Creeper. But yeah, no, I think we want to get out there and promote the show, promote the album, and play shows as much as we possibly can. So yeah, that's definitely the aim. So yeah, hopefully we'll get something sorted soon.
Yeah, it's been little bit tricky just because of like naturally there's been like a bit of a kind of like backlog with everything because of where there was no shows happening and happening again. So bookings are kind of go like all these bookings are like slam through, like promoters been able to do shows and stuff again. So it's been a bit tricky trying to get availability kind of thing. But we're hoping obviously once the album drops tomorrow, like and people can actually hear it, and off the back of the reviews and stuff, we'll be able to start booking some stuff up, because the plan is to like try and get a few like proper tours like booked out, and kind of long-term planning. We'd love to get over to Europe for like that'd be the first time for us, just take it further afield, to like to more audiences as well.
Obviously, I mean, you have obviously played shows since obviously the return of live music. What do you think's been? Was there anything that you felt that prior to COVID you may have maybe taken for granted, that when you came back and actually did it, maybe brought it to a new light and a new sense of appreciation?
Yeah, I think I mean, I went to a few gigs in the sort of I don't know what you call it, the lockdown sort of period. And there was seating and there was all like arrows telling you where to go and things like that. I think it's just the freedom really of just going to a gig, or if I'm in London, I'll just rock up to a gig, and just having that kind of freedom to do whatever you want and not have any restrictions in place is definitely what I took for granted. But I think when we started playing shows again, I think there was definitely a big buzz, I think, because everyone was just dying to get out and go to gigs again.
Yeah, I think ironically, because up until the pandemic, we gigged like really heavily. Like, so first 2 years we did like 35 shows each year. Like the third year we did like 20, like mid-20s. And then obviously pandemic happened, so there was like no gigs. I think we only had one or two kind of booked leading up to it, but they got cancelled because it was when COVID started like spreading quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just prior to lockdown, but it's like, whoa, hang on, like this has got a bit crazy. So obviously promoters cancelled the shows, like, understandably. And you have that worry, obviously, like, this is unusual for a band. Like, well, it's unusual for any band, but we're so used to just gigging as much as we could. It's just like, what do you do? And obviously we were kind of in limbo in terms of like not like sitting on the album and stuff. So we're like, right, okay, what's going to happen? And you have that little worry, like, okay, when shows eventually come back, like, is all that momentum going to have gone? Like, is the buzz going to have gone? Is anyone going to care anymore? But I think during the lockdown time, like, a kind of more people kind of became aware of us without us kind of realizing. A bit more of a buzz like built up. And like the first show we had back was like a hometown show, and like I know obviously think our hometown show it's going to be like pretty well attended, but it's not always a given. Like, it's weird in Milton Keynes. Like we've historically had like quite a healthy music scene, but I would say these days, like, it's a bit more I say the bands that are coming through now, like the younger bands, like you like 18 to 20-year-olds and that, it's more kind of like alt rock and like indie kind of focus, which is cool. They're doing their own thing, like, don't get me wrong, there's not like a big like metal scene anymore. So you're just like, we just call it's like, cool, we'll do a warm-up show, it'll be wicked, because otherwise the first show back's gonna be Bloodstock, and that's gonna be like bloody hell, like going straight back to that. So we did this warm-up show, and it was packed, and it was like loads of people we'd never met, like people had traveled down for it, like, oh yeah, I couldn't wait to see you and stuff. But like, what's happened here? It's just like suddenly someone's turned a switch on, like, Casket Feeder. It's just like, wow. Played Bloodstock, tent was absolutely rammed, like it was just insane. It was like pits for the whole set and stuff. So it's kind of like that time off, more people have like had their ears turned to us, and it's like we've come back and everyone's like, oh yeah, I really want to see Casket Feeder. So yeah, we'll never take that for granted. Like it's exceeded like anything we expected to happen, and just obviously just being able to play shows and stuff, like I think it's like, you can't take that stuff lightly, like, because touch wood it doesn't happen again, but it's like that can get taken away, and it's just like you're left spinning your wheels a bit. So yeah, just being able to play shows, go out and see bands, it's just something like we've all kind of been like, just appreciate it a lot more kind of thing.
I mean, the last question with regard to this, the album, is there distribution in place for it, or is it basically one where at the moment it's just going to be available from your Big Cartel and your shows?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, sort of DIY, do it ourselves. Big Cartel, get it from a show. That's kind of where to get it at the moment.
Cool. I mean, is there anything else that you guys want to add for the end of the interview?
I'd say honestly, it's just like genuinely thanks to everyone who's checked the album out. Thanks to everyone's given us the time to like speak. So you reviewed the record. Thanks to everyone who supported us so far as well, like, since the band started. And just obviously support the UK underground, support the UK metal scene. There's so many strong bands coming through now, like young, exciting bands as well, like all across the spectrum, you know, like bands like Harriet, friends of ours, Pupil Slicer, more established fans like Venom Prison, like obviously bearing the flag for like UK metal. Bands like Malevolence, more on the hardcore side of things, but like smashing it and like turning it into like a world-beating band. Like I'd say now is maybe one of the healthiest times ever for like UK metal and like hardcore. So just support bands, because honestly, like anyone inside this scene knows it's like a hard slog, but anyone outside of it, it's like it's hard grafted, you know, like everyone in these bands that you love, they've got full-time jobs and stuff, and like buying a record, buying a t-shirt and stuff, like it goes a long way. Like it keeps the wheels turning, like definitely. So yeah, just any little bit of support is like massively appreciated, and that goes for like every band.
100%. Yeah, what he said.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you very much. If you could just shout out where the Big Cartel address, so people know where they can pick up the record, or I can obviously pass it on to us so we can get it put in the description of the interview on YouTube and Spotify, etc.
Yeah, so it's www.casketfeeder.bigcartel.com. So it's fairly easy to remember. Or if you go to our Instagram page, there's like a link tree thing in there, like the link in the bio. You can get the link in there. You know, there's links all over our socials and stuff for merch, so should be quite easy to find.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.